guys, it's Jessica from Peace Love Books, and today I'm here with my mid-month wrap-up for May. It is already halfway through May. I'm filming this on the 15th, so I hopefully will finish another book today, but I will put that on my next wrap-up. When it is finally summer break for me, I'm so excited. I chopped off some hair. I am ready for summer break. I'm a teacher, so our last day is the 26th. I'm very much looking forward to having the summer off, but I read 15 books in the last 15 days. I did a themed reading vlog, and then I did 2 readathons, so I literally only have 3 genres I read. Small town romances, mafia romances, historical romances. So there's something for everybody in this vlog, and they are all categorized by genre. So I'm going to go through my small town first, then mafia, and then historical. So I hope you guys enjoy, and we'll get to the books I read. The first book I read was on audio, and that's Beautifully Broken Lies by Catherine Cowles. This is book 2 or 3 in this series, I don't remember now, but I have been wanting to read more small town romances, and now I really want to pick up more. I'm excited to read more from Catherine Cowles. This one is my favorite by her that I've read so far. I gave it 4 stars. Our heroine is running away from an abusive husband, and so she hides out in the small town. She's working at this cafe with the heroine from the previous book, and she doesn't want to talk to people, and she gets like weirded out when people try to talk to her too much, and she gets very suspicious. She's very shaky, anxious about everybody she meets because she thinks that her husband might be able to track her down because he was able to control everything. She went to the police when she was with him, and he like owned the police too. Nobody believed her, so that's why she ran away, and she catches the eye of a musician who was best friends with the heroine in the previous book. He's hiding out in the small town because he cannot write. He has just this block, and so he's going there to kind of go to the roots of his music, and she does inspire him, but they have to think about, are we going to be together? Because if they are, he's going to be in the limelight, and the husband will definitely be able to find his wife if she's dating a famous musician. So she's very hesitant, but she really likes him, and they grow closer, and it was really sweet. I really enjoyed it. Definitely some suspense at the end. I feel like a lot of small town romances end up having suspense in them, and so I ended up enjoying this a lot more than the previous book, and like I said, I can't wait to read more from Catherine Cowles. I gave it 4 stars. Then I picked up Indigo Ridge. This is one that I've seen everywhere. I already ordered the second one so that I can read it. I really enjoy this one. It's probably one of my favorite Devney Perrys that I've read recently. I did read her Mason Jar series years ago, like 2 or 3 years ago, and I really enjoyed The Birthday List. But this one, our heroine is the new police chief in town, and when she has her first night in town, she's at a bar. She wants to hook up with someone, but she knows she can't hook up with a local, and so she meets this guy, and he says he's passing through. So they have a one-night stand, which the weird thing about this book to me was that half of it was fade to black until we got about halfway through, and then we started getting more explicit scenes, and I thought that was a little odd because they had explosive chemistry together when they had their one-night stand, and they couldn't stop thinking about each other, and they kept on thinking about their night together. We didn't get to see it though. We saw the before and after, not the actual night together. So I felt like I was missing a little bit of that connection that they said they had because we didn't get to see it. But he ends up being one of the kids of the founding family, and he lives in town, and he owns a ranch, and there was a body found on his property that was a suicide, but it's like the 5th suicide in 10 years in the same place. So the heroine is very skeptical. She's like, something bigger is going on here. I don't think these are all a death by suicide. And so she digs. The town doesn't want her to. They just want to put these deaths behind them because it is so tragic losing these young women. I'm pretty sure they were all women. And so the heroine and hero are kind of dancing around each other as well because they really liked their time together. So I feel like there were 2 more times they were together that we had the fade to black, and then we finally got this like culminating scene when they were trusting each other, and then we got to have that scene of them together. I gave it 3.5 stars, but I did round it up to 4. I liked how the relationship grew. There was suspense in here with the deaths, and of course at the end, just like every small town romance, and the person that was behind everything, I feel like was kind of cheated. Like, I feel like we would not have guessed that person because they weren't shown to us enough. I feel like the author should have worked a little harder to make it surprising without saying, oh well, you didn't even know this character that much to begin with and they're the one who did it. So I really wish that we had seen more about these characters, and so then we really felt thrown off when they were the one behind everything. So it was just like a little bit in that suspense aspect that dropped it down to 3.5 stars for me, but I still really enjoy this. I enjoy this town that this book is in, and I'm excited to pick up the second one. Then I read Protecting You by Claire Kingsley, and this one made me a little annoyed because it's book 1 in a series, but it should definitely be 0.5 because it sets up for the couple's actual book in book 2. And I knew going in that this was part 1 of like the book 2 would be the rest of this couple's relationship, but this one was just like everything I don't want in my romances because it's usually like extra content. And I'm someone, I feel like weird saying this because people are obsessed with this kind of content. I don't care about like bonus scenes. I don't care about bonus epilogues. I don't care about prequels. Like, I don't care. I just want the romance with the conflict and the angst, and like if they're good to go, fine. I don't need to see them anymore. So in this one, our hero and heroine grew up as best friends. We see them, and I liked the beginning enough. Like, we saw them when they were kids and they protected each other, and then his family, he did lose his parents, I believe, and he's living with all of his brothers with their grandmother, and she lives next door with her single mom and her younger brother. She goes away to college, he stays home, and they kind of just drift apart and start dating other people, and now she's home for the summer, and he decides, like, we're destined to be together. So we're gonna be together. He asks her out, and they like fall in this whirlwind romance where they both are like, we're gonna get married, we love each other. And so it felt very insta-love, and the pacing felt super weird, but it's because we needed to get to the point where book 2 started, where there was actual conflict in their relationship and they had to figure out what they were gonna do. So I just like, I could have just not even read this and just jumped right into book 2 and been completely fine, because they are torn apart at the end of this book and we don't get any conflict whatsoever in their relationship until the end. And I need conflict in my relationships. I can't just read about a couple happy and in love and going about their daily lives. I don't care. So I was very bored with this book. I gave it 3 stars. The pacing also was really off because all of a sudden they were like looking at houses, living together. I'm like, you guys just decided to date. Like, now you're gonna be married and moving in. It was just like so fast, and I just feel like there wasn't any challenge to the relationship until the end, and so I didn't care. I want to read book 2 now because I'm like, this is the story I want with the angst and the conflict of their relationship. So I wish that the author marketed this as 0.5 and not 1, because I honestly don't think you have to read it. But I haven't read book 2 yet, but I would have skipped this one if I knew that's what this was about. Then I picked up The Wreckage of Us by Brittany C. Cherry on audio. This is one where you can download the Kindle Unlimited, and it comes with the Audible book with KU, so I think it's like read and listen. And this one I was enjoying. I gave it 4 stars. Our heroine really needs a job, so she gets a job on this ranch, and nobody thinks that she can really do the job because she's a woman and she wears like combat boots, and the hero is supposed to be training her, and like I just am reading Darling Venom right now and the same thing happens, where the heroine walks in on the hero in an intimate situation with another woman, and the hero looks at her and doesn't stop. I do not find that attractive whatsoever, and so I was really put off by the hero in the beginning of this book, and she's supposed to be trained by him, and he's like 2 hours late, so she storms into his office, and he's too busy off with another woman and makes her watch him complete what they're doing. And so I was already like, this guy is such a jerk. I hate him so much. And he's supposed to be this like womanizer for a reason. We learn about his past, and he ends up training her and going extra hard on her. Like, she does a job that like 3 men are supposed to do, but she does not quit. She gets kicked out of her house because her mom's a drug addict and dating a drug dealer, and so or married to him, I don't remember. And so she ends up like trying to live in the shed on the property, and he is like, you can't live in there, move in with me. So she lives with him. It's kind of forced proximity. They fall in love, and then it turns into a rock star romance. So I like the small town aspect. I really like that. That's why I gave it 4 stars, but I didn't need the rock star romance, because then we had the cliched, oh, well, you're gonna make it big and you're gonna forget the small town, you're gonna forget me, and you're always around lots of women, and are you gonna want to be with them? And I like didn't love how cliche rock star the plot turned. I would have just liked it to stay a small town romance. So 4 stars for this one. Definitely good small town romance, but no, it turns into more of a rock star romance for the second half. Okay, so then I have the Mafia Romance Readathon, so I do have a vlog for that. I can link that down below, and the first one I read was Vicious Prince by Lily St. Germain. This one, again, I feel like I did not like the book until the end. Now I want to read book 2. So I give this one 3 stars because our heroine is a child of a mafia guy, right? And so she's used to being like told what to do, and he's really violated by her dad. He chooses what to do. He like harvested her eggs so she could have a child with who he wants her to have him, and it was out without her permission. She's in love with this like guy who's a child of actors, and they want to be together, but she's being forced to marry this guy that's like way older than her. Neither of these guys are the love interest. So then we, like, in the prologue, we get like her dad being killed and her being kidnapped, and then we're flashing back to like the present day, and we have to wait 60% to get to what this prologue showed, and then we meet the love interest. who has a past with her, who we have not even met up until this point. I was like, what is the point of this 60% if the plot's not even gonna get started to what we needed until 60% in? And so I feel like it was just a waste in the beginning. I was like, why do I care about this boyfriend she's dating and all this time spent with him, and this guy she's supposed to marry and all this time spent with him, but she's gonna get kidnapped and fall in love with this guy? 60% in the book. So I feel like this book should have been just combined with the next book. I think it's a trilogy though. I don't know. I just was so disappointed, but I'm at the end and I'm like, but I gotta know what happens now, because it's captive, and it definitely feels like still beating. So it's very dark. Know that. Bad things are done to her. It's Mafia. All these are going to be dark moving forward, but I gave this 3 stars, but I kind of want to read the next one. So if you've read them, let me know if I should continue on and if I'm going to get what I want out of the series. Then I'm so sad. I finished Heavy Crown, so I finished the whole Brutal Birthright series. This is book 6, and this is by Sophie Lark. I listened to the audiobook, and I gave this one 3 stars. I feel like I was in such a rut at the beginning of this readathon because I was reading books that I wasn't loving, and this one was boring. Sebastian is a character I was so intrigued by. He's the one in the first book where he is a basketball player and he's gonna be pro, or he like played pro for 1 year, and he got his knee bashed in by the rival Mafia, and so he can't play anymore and he's recovering, and he helps like steal jewels in the 3rd book. We see him a lot on the sidelines, and I was really interested in him, and so he meets this woman who is the daughter of like the Russian Mafia, and he's like, oh, so like have you heard of me? And she's like, no. I'm like, you're really gonna believe that? The daughter of your biggest rival doesn't know who you are? And so they fall in love, but she's hiding secrets, and I was so bored by this story. I didn't care. I knew the conflict was gonna be very obvious and cliche, and I just didn't love their romance. The plot finally picked up like halfway through, but I was like, the romance I really don't care about. I don't care about these 2 people and if they can make it together, and the ending just felt like it was setting up for the Kingmaker series. So I was disappointed this was the ending, and I was disappointed I didn't love this couple, so I gave this 3 stars. I still don't like Savage Lover the most. That was like a 2-star read for me, but this one is my second to least favorite of the series, unfortunately. But the book before, absolute 5-star read. I absolutely loved it. Just this one, a bit disappointing. Lily, my dog, is laying in my bed, so I turned my fan on for her because I wanted her to feel comfortable, and I didn't realize I left it on, so hopefully you didn't hear that the entire time in the background. If you did, it's off now. I apologize. But the next book I read, another one that was just disappointing, is Ghost by A. Zavarelli. This one, very dark. Our heroine was kidnapped, and well, like, she was kidnapped, but it was by someone she thought she could trust, and she is a sex slave for over a year, and Alexei was asked to find her. He is this like computer genius and very mysterious, and people are scared of him, and so he ends up finding her and taking her and marrying her, and he has her in his house, and he's trying to help heal her and bring her back to life. And she was ready to kill herself. Like, she had pills, she was ready right when he took her, and so she doesn't want to live anymore, and he wants her to. So it was very dark, and most of it took place in his house, which I don't love mafia romances that are confined to the home, because then everyone just sits around and that's all that happens. Like, a lot of Cora Rileys are like that, and so it was very hard to read, especially because they're both very damaged and they really push each other, and not in a good way, to try to heal each other. And so I was just like not into it, and I was like, I don't want to keep on reading this. I mean, things like picked up at near the end, but I don't know. I was just like, okay, it's fine, but like, it's not as good as books 1 and 2 were, and I just didn't find myself caring. I was so excited for this couple too, but it was just a lot more serious in their relationship and not in the way that I loved, so I gave this one 3 stars. So the next one is Mafia Casanova by M. Robinson and Rachel Van Dyken. I listened to this one on audio, and I gave this one 4 stars. It is a between brothers romance. It is a between brothers romance, so our heroine was kind of into Romeo when they were growing up, and Romeo and his brother, I'm blanking on the brother's name, Nick or something, are growing up in the Mafia, so they are already part of the Mafia, and she always like liked Romeo, but then he does something that betrays her trust, and he like really pushes her away, so she marries the other brother. The other brother knows like that Romeo is for Eden, but she marries the other brother anyways, and they have a kid together, but she goes through bad things with him, and he ends up dying. And so it flashes between the past when she's like in the process of getting married, her relationship with Romeo, and then the present where her husband's now dead and Romeo is helping protect her and take care of her son. And I love the relationship between the son and Romeo, because he is the uncle and has a great relationship with the son, and she is slowly letting him back in again and learning things that her husband was doing that weren't that great of things. And so I enjoyed it. It did get a little confusing because I listened to it on audio of all the flashbacks, because it would be like, then 4 months later, present 2 months later, and so like you had to really keep the timeline straight in your head. But this was definitely a more enjoyable mafia romance than what I had been reading, so I gave it 4 stars. Then I read Ivan, and this was immediate 5-star read. I was obsessed. Our heroine Sloane is an assassin, and so we see her assassinating someone in the beginning, and then she ends up getting a job to assassinate Ivan, who is like the head of a mafia, and she is like, I should not take this, but it's like $500,000, and she's like, I need the money, I'll take it. And so she actually ends up getting super close to killing him, closer than like anybody has before. So Ivan captures her. She doesn't succeed, and he is so intrigued. He's like, who is this woman who actually almost killed me? And they have immediate chemistry, and they are super into each other, but Ivan has other things to worry about, like who had tried to put a hit out on him, and then other things are happening, and they end up like becoming friends, but being really into each other too. And I just loved this so much, and I love how Sloane is such a fun character. Someone's trying to kill her as well, and so much happens in such a little amount of pages, but I was obsessed. Gave it 5 stars. You guys definitely need to read this, and I'm excited to read more from the series, and I'm glad that I loved Sophie Lark after not loving the last one. The next 5 books are for the historical romance readathon. So the first one I picked up is Married by Morning, which is book 4 in the Hathaway series by Lisa Kleypas, and this one I gave 3 stars to. I was so disappointed in this one. It is Leo and Kat's story, and they have been bickering and bantering for the entire series almost, and Kat is the governess for Beatrix. I definitely wrote Beatrice in my review. I listened to them on audio, so I thought her name was Beatrice. Her name's Beatrix. So that's a sister, but they end up hating each other for like 20 pages, and then the hate to love is over in this book, and Leo is all of a sudden like, I am obsessed with you, I love you, we need to get married. And most of the book is just her pushing him away, and I got really annoyed. We're trying to unravel more about Kat's past, and we do learn it's very dark and sad, but I just didn't love it. I was very bored by their romance, very bored by the fact that the only thing keeping them apart was Kat saying she's not good enough for Leo. Leo had this huge heartbreak because he lost the love of his life before the books, so he is like a drunk and a mess in the first book, and he's gotten better, but like that barely came up in this book, so it felt like all their development happened in the other books, and this one was just boring. So I gave it 3 stars. I like the audios. Rosalind Lindor is the narrator, and she does the Bridgerton books, and I love her, but didn't love this one. Then I picked up the audio of The Marquess Makes His Move by Diana Quincy, and this is a new favorite historical romance of mine. 5 out of 5 stars. I was obsessed. Our hero, he is a Marquess, and he had noticed that these maps were drawn wrong to cheat him out of land, and so he is super angry. So he goes and decides to pose as a footman for the family of the map maker who made the map to try to figure out if he really swindled him out of land, and he ends up being in charge of waiting on the heroine, who is the wife of the map maker. But in reality, the heroine is the one who's been making the maps and signing them with her initials, and she has the same first initial as her husband, so she signs them and the husband takes credit. And she only married the husband because he was her uncle's apprentice, and her uncle passed away, and so she married him to keep the business in her family. And so her and her husband like barely see each other. They have not slept together in a long time, and she wants a family, and she is like tells her husband that, and he's like, I don't want kids, and she's just like, what? And so she is really not in a good place in her marriage. She does not know what to do, and she starts falling for her footman, who is so unlike any other servant she's had, and his relationship with the servants is hilarious because he doesn't know anything, and they're like, who'd you work for before? And like he realizes all the things they don't get, and so he like takes a lot of his stuff, like food and tea, and like gives it to them, and they're like, where did you get all this? And he's like, oh well, it was a gift to like my aunt, and she let me have it. And so he's trying to like give them better lives, and it was super cute. And I just loved how sweet their romance was, how they just slowly fell for each other after spending so much time together, and it was so good. It was so good, and then secrets are revealed about her and her husband, and things get crazy. I was obsessed with every moment of this book. 5 stars. You have to read it. It's so good. I didn't finish as much as I wanted to in this readathon because this book took me like 4 or 5 days to read. A Scoundrel of Her Own by Stacey Reid. I feel like this happened the last time I read the second book in the series. I adore the first book, My Darling Duke. Amazing. One of my favorite historicals. This one sounded really good because our heroine is rescued by her hero when they're really young. Like she's 8 or 9 and he's like 11 or 12. And he saves her when like she's floating away in this river. He saves her and carries her to this cabin where they spend like 12 days together. He helps support them, he finds food, he takes care of her, and someone like finally comes and finds them and rescues them and just like drops him off at home. Not even at home, like in a field at home, and he almost dies. But she is taken back home and everything's fine. But they had promised to marry each other when they met each other, and he had told her father, I'm gonna marry her. And he is like, yeah, right, like she's gonna marry someone wealthy. Like, no. That really struck a chord with our hero, so he dedicated the rest of his life to becoming wealthy, and he does. He goes through a lot of bad times, but I think he owns a gambling hell now, and he is super wealthy, wealthier than her family. Her family is now in debt, and so he figures out finally who she is. Like, he didn't remember who she was, just her name. He calls her Fifi, but she's Ophelia. He finally tracks her down and leaves her a note saying, I'll give you 20,000 pounds if you sing for me, because she moonlights as a singer. Like, she is secretly the singer. She puts on the blonde wig. I wish this had her natural hair, because he was obsessed with her dark raven hair. But it's okay, we have her opera singer hair on this one. But she ends up being like, who is this person? But I need the money to help save my family. And so she goes and they start their romance. And now she is uncovering secrets about who her mother is. She has a different mother than what she's grown up with, and so she's trying to uncover that. But that's really all the plot. I feel like the hero had such an interesting backstory and could have had a really cool plot line, but nothing was done with his life. He had no plot whatsoever. It was just about her and about them spending time together. And this had 370 pages, and I feel like not enough happened to be 370 pages. The romance was super, super slow burn, so like we're slowly building up to the romance, her finding her true birth mother, and that's really it. So I gave this 3.5 stars. I did round up to 4. The romance was just like this sweeping epic romance where they are destined to be together and they will do anything to be together to defy society, but it was just a little disappointing to me. Another disappointing book was The Raquel of Roth by Amelie Howard. I listened to this on audio. It was a marriage in trouble romance. I was really excited. Our heroine, our hero, they get married and they have one amazing night together, and then he leaves and does not come back for 3 years. She finally decides, I'm gonna go find him. She thinks he's been cheating this whole time. He hasn't. He just made her think that. And the hero was so stubborn and so annoying. Like, the reason he wasn't there was such an annoying reason, and I was just like, get over yourself and live your life the way you want to, because he was letting other people dictate how he was living his life, and I was so annoyed with him. And I just feel like nothing else really happened in this book. Like, she showed up and there was like things that could have been really cool because he owns a club, but like just one scene happened between them, and I feel like it was just lacking chemistry, because I was like, I've seen this kind of scene happen in other books and they were really like steamy and great for the relationship, but in that one I was just like, oh, I don't see this adding anything to the relationship. I don't see them like super invested in each other and in love, and it was just not fleshed out enough for me, like not really that great of a romance to me. So I gave this one 3 out of 5 stars. I was annoyed with all of his decisions and the things that we learned. I was just like, really? That's why you can't be with her? It was just fine. So I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. The last book I finished for the race on was this morning, and that is Love in the Afternoon by Lisa Kleypas. This is book 5 in the series. This one is Beatrix and Christopher's story, and it was perfection. Christopher is off at war and he's writing to Prudence, who is just like this lovely debutante who's super pretty but has no personality whatsoever. She only cares about marrying wealthy and looking good in society, and so she's kind of bored writing to Christopher. So Beatrix is like kind of her friend, and she's like, well, why don't you just write to him? And so Beatrix starts writing to him, and they fall in love through their letters. He thinks he's writing to Prudence. She's writing to this guy who made fun of her in society and said she should like stay in the horse barn or the stables because she loves animals, and I love the animals that run around throughout the whole series. They're super cute. And so he returns from war and he is suffering from PTSD. He has survivor's guilt. He has a dog that was in war with him that is adorable and has such a big role in the book too. Beatrix finds the dog first in the woods and then runs into Christopher, and she's like, oh my gosh, he's back. She had told him, come find me. And he like felt this spark, like, I'm gonna find Prudence in these woods, and he finds Beatrix and he's trying to court Prudence, and he's like, this is not the same woman I was writing letters to. So the story goes on from there, and it is the most adorable thing ever. The ending does go on for quite a bit, like we get their wedding and things, but it's because it's wrapping up the whole series and we get to see all the Hathaways, and it is just adorable. And I love the animal aspect. I loved his dog, who was also trying to adapt to life not being in war, and Beatrix just takes time to spend with the dog and like train the dog, and it's so cute. 5 stars. Love this book, and probably, I don't know, I love this one in book 3. Those are my 2 favorites of the series. I don't think I can pick. And the last book I read is Me Ultimatum by Rodolfo Anaya. This is a book I teach to my Honors 10 kids. I'm an English teacher, and so this is our last book of the year. It's about Antonio. It's a coming of age story. He's growing up with Ultima, who is a curandera, so she is a healer. He's trying to understand all these different religions he's been shown because he's being raised Catholic, and he's trying to understand understand death. He is 6 at the beginning of this book, and he sees like a lot of people dying, and he's trying to just understand humanity, what his future is going to be. And I love reading this book with my kids, so I did count it as a book read because I read it every year with them. I just didn't read it one year in 2020 when COVID happened in March. We could not finish out the year with my last book, but I really enjoy this book. I have fun teaching it with my kids. They're working on their final project now. We're watching the movie next, and then it'll be the end of the year. So wanted to tag that on to the end, but that's all I have. I read 15 books, so let me know if you read any of these and what your thoughts were and what you've read so far in May. I would love to hear. Let me know your 5-star reads, and that's all I have. As always, thank you so much for watching and have a good day. Bye.